All right, so our topic is overharvesting of populations, overfishing, and my name's Stephanie Metz, and we also have Michael Castanon and Taylor Redding in our group. So let's get started. So first off, um, one of the main questions is what is overharvesting of populations and what does it mean? So basically, it's harvesting a renewable resource to the point of diminishing returns. So that means you're taking a resource for business or profit, and instead of sustainably sourcing it to be able to keep having it for your business, it makes it to where it's hard to keep it growing because it's a living resource. And so, like with trees, fish, or plants or animals, there's only so many resources you can take away um, before it gets to the so few of them that there's not enough time for them to be replaced. The logging and fishing are two main overharvesting practices in the world right now. Those two practices have really detrimental effects like on the ecosystem and the environment. So here's some pictures of like logs, cows grazing in pastures, making sure that there's enough food for them to eat to be able to keep growing more cows to sell. And then the bottom picture is the vast amount of fish that are caught every day in the ocean. Here's a few population ecology terms and just their definitions. We've got ecology, population, and ecosystem. And then in the picture, it shows like a plant community living on its own. And then it goes a little bit bigger to the habitat that the plant community lives in. So the plants and the water. Then it goes to the ecosystem where you have weather forces and other species living around it and other plants living around it. And then here's some more terms that are more narrowly defined for like the specific topic we're talking about. Carrying capacity is like the first picture. It's the maximum population size that an environment can sustain. So the one goldfish bowl is way overcrowded. I would not want to live in that fish bowl. The other one, there's just enough population that they can live happily. Density dependent factor, that's like the second picture down, the seal eating a fish in the water. That's like a predator um, eating its prey, and it has an effect on the population size. And then density independent factor is something like weather or pollution or trash in the ocean, like the third picture, where it affects the population size regardless of how big a population is. So, our main topic that we're talking about today is overfishing. That is catching more fish than nature can replenish. One of the modern instances of this is when they wanted oil to burn in lamps. They went out and hunted whales almost to extinction because they wanted the blubber. It was a really good like for kerosene lamps. It was a really good stimulant for the lamps. And a few like ways that overfishing happens is illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. These these practices like totally mess up the fisheries in the world. And then subsidies also cause overfishing because it's money that governments pay to help businesses stay afloat to continue practicing their business. And so if they're just giving all of these fishing businesses money to keep fishing, they aren't going to turn that down and say, "Oh, we don't want to mess up the population, so we just won't take your money." Um, the graph shows the practices of fishing over the years and how it has increased like dramatically over time. With aquaculture, which is the blue line, and capture fisheries, which is the red line. So like it, the demand for fish like keeps increasing over time, and we have to figure out a way to sustainably do it for the future. How ecologists study fish overfishing is they look at like the unintended consequence of people acting in their economic interest. So like I said with the subsidies, if people are going to be able to make a profit, like they're going to do whatever they can to stay in business. And like similarly, fish market prices makes overfishing happen because when you have like sharks, tuna, or codfish that are really popular and really in high demand, that is the type of fish that you're going to try to get to make the most money. They're not going to try to fish for stuff that no one wants to buy. They also look at unreliable catch reporting. So, not reporting the accurate amount of fish you're actually fishing causes overfishing. Um, so they need to monitor it better and have better estimates of how many fish they're actually taking out of the sea to make sure that the populations can remain stable. And that's done by doing fish stock assessments. So like fishery scientists go in and they use different data tools and different measurement tools to predict how many fish are in a certain population so that they can make sure to keep that population at a healthy level and let people know when it's being fluctuated too much. So here's some environmental impacts of overfishing. The picture sums it up really well, but it basically messes up the food web. Species can be lost and go extinct because of it. Um, and fish is a really big like protein for a lot of people in the world, and so if you don't have enough fish to feed everyone, then that'll become an issue. And then of course, economically, fishing jobs will cease to exist because if there's no fish to fish, then no one can get paid to fish. And then here's some ways that we can mitigate overfishing. So have protected areas and like make them bigger in the world. Um, and then use different like analytical technologies to make sure that populations are staying at a good level. And then, of course, politics and economics can shift towards helping making sure that overfishing stops.
All right, so next we'll be talking about the Great Barrier Reef. It was discovered in 1770 by Captain James Cook, located off the east coast of Queensland, mainland Australia. Its size is 134,634 miles square. Mhm. The clownfish relationship with the Great Barrier Reef. Overfishing is leading a decline in the clownfish population. The the clownfish protects the reef from predators. It fertilizes the reef, and in return, the reef protects the clownfish from its predators. Another species would be the green turtles are also being overfished. Climate change can bring instability to the turtle population. Marine population, another factor in the decline. Mm, The green turtles maintain the seagrass beds near reef. The turtles recycle nutrients for the other animals and plants. Another species would be the crown of thorn starfish relationship with the Great Barrier Reef. It eats fast-growing corals to slow it down so other corals can catch up on the growth. Overfishing has caused the crown of thorn starfish to change its appearance, has thorns to protect itself from predators while eating on the coral reef. The decline of the Great Barrier Reef, farm pollution main factor in the reef decline, overfishing, unbalancing the reef, coral bleaching is caused by the global warming, industrialization is dredging the seafloor by doing port expansions. How can we help the Great Barrier Reef? We must put restrictions on factories releasing pollution into the environment, make it illegal to fish certain animals that are on the brink of extinction. We have to slow down the warmth of our planet if we want the coral bleaching to stop. In order for us to quickly to save the Great Barrier Reef by 2035, we must switch to 100% renewable power energy to slow down the warming in the ocean.
So now we're talking about overfishing in Australia. Australia's oceans are home to some of the most diverse species on Earth. Fish stocks have decreased to dangerously low levels, and two factors are to account for this issue. Low biological productivity, which means species aren't generating quickly enough, and then overfishing. In 2010, at least 18 of 82 species in Australian waters were classified as overfished. In the last decade, there has been at least a 30% decline in larger fish. Despite being almost endangered, it is currently still legal in Australia to commercially fish for school, scallop, hammered, and gulper sharks, plus dogfish and southern bluefin tuna. All those are categorized by the government as conservation dependent, which means that those species are acknowledged that they are under threat, but they can still be fished. Some examples of overfishing: bycatch, which is marine life that is killed or injured during the fishing process but is not retained. And then when people use gill nets, they're invisible and they are hung vertically in the sea, meant to entangle fish. They're also deadly for endangered marine life in the Great Barrier Reef. Conservationists are calling for banning of the nets in certain endangered species habitats. Long line fishing is a method where a fishing line kilometers long is set with thousands of little baited hooks in the water and laid along the seabed. They are set in hopes of catching tuna, swordfish, sharks, anything like that that will bite. Long lines can also kill turtles, sharks, whales, and seabirds. They do it every year. Effects of overfishing on species population. Worldwide, hundreds of thousands of sea turtles a year are accidentally caught in shrimp nets, long line hooks, and fishing gill nets. Sea turtles need to reach the surface to breathe, so when they are caught, they ultimately die because they're drowning. Sea turtles, as mentioned earlier, sea turtles help keep the seagrass beds intact pretty much, and seabeds function as nurseries for several species of invertebrate and fish, many of which are considered valuable to commercial fisheries and therefore important for human food security. Leatherback turtles forage in the open sea throughout their whole lives. They are one of the top predators of oceanic jellyfish. So, and jellyfish, they eat larval fish. So if the number of leatherback turtles decreases, then the number of oceanic jellyfish increases, meaning they eat more and more larval fish, which stops, them from becoming adults. And there's a wide variety of marine ecosystems that are dependent on those fish. So essentially, that's going to be in jeopardy, and also commercial fisheries are going to suffer consequences as well. How to reduce turtle bycatch. So you can switch to circle hooks. As you can see in the image there, you have a J hook, and the circle hook is you can see is larger, so it's easier. It's easier for the turtles to not get caught by that, so and purposely catch what you're looking for, like tuna, fish, whatever it may be. You also can use devices that, for gill nets, you can use devices that exclude turtles from the net. The World Wildlife Fund aims to reduce bycatch by also promoting the use of satellite tracking devices. So you can see in the image right under that essentially they attach a device to the turtle and they track it. And so they do that so when they deploy these fishing methods, the hooks and the nets, they know where the turtles are, and they can try to make sure that they don't interact with the turtles whenever they're fishing. How to make fishing methods more sustainable. So with gill nets, you can make sure that they're constantly attended to, that they're only deployed in the water for a short amount of time, and to throw the nets like in areas, like avoid areas where vulnerable species habitats are. For longline fishing, they're trying to promote fishing gear modifications that that exclude the turtles from, essentially being caught, and then putting important habitats like the sea turtles and many other endangered species, putting their habitats in marine parks. And lastly, what you can do to, help with the situation, stop overfishing, is just take any kind of action you can. Just speak up. Sign different petitions that they have out there. You can even adopt a turtle as a symbolic act that, fights for the stopping of overfishing and the conservation of sea turtles. Because essentially we need to have sustainable resources and ways of overfishing so that we can continue to have an abundance of fish for generations to come. And that's it.